Welcome to the Parenting with Confidence podcast. I am your host, Teresa Alexander Inman, board certified behavior analyst and infant toddler developmental specialist. Today, I am so delighted to have Sarah Maynard with us. She is the founder and CEO of The Starty Fact, a digital presence educational consulting company that teaches how to navigate the digital world and manage online presence in a safe, healthy, and beneficial way. Welcome, 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 Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh gosh, I'm excited to have you here. I cannot talk about this enough because it is such a problem. You know,
Mhm.
Parents start, with giving their children, putting them on devices very early because I need to get the dishes done. I need to do this, that, and the other thing. And then it
Mhm.
becomes this, oh my gosh, how do we get my child off it?
Yes. Yeah, it's because it's so easy and it's designed to be easy. I mean, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
So great job for them. But it does it because it makes it so easy, we have to be so conscious about when we give it to them. And especially when they're small, they don't understand to help give themselves their own boundaries and guidelines. And so we as the parents we just have to be really strong in our boundaries. And even when they are small, explaining to them why, no, you know what, you can't be on this for 12 hours today, you can't be on this for 5 hours, whatever your threshold is for your family, because every family is different, every family is going to have their own reasons for doing things. But it is really important to even just say to those really young kids, like, this is why we're doing this, and starting that conversation. Because if you're already having that conversation when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, by the time that they're in their teens, then it's so much easier to have a conversation about stuff that gets so much harder.
Oh, thank you. Because, it's sort of that snowball effect, right? We're able to have that difficult conversation when we're younger. And as we get older, you build on that and you set yourself up
Mhm.
for success. Yay, thank you. I
Yes.
honestly, I'm just picking up as you're dropping it. So,
Perfect. That's how it works. That's how it works.
yeah, so thank you for dropping it.
Yes.
Now, again, it starts so early. So, 5 no, I wouldn't say months. Well, yeah, some people do. They start really early because, they're like, it's
Mhm.
educational. I'm teaching them
Mhm.
this. And then at a year, the child can't put it down.
Yeah.
How would you
And
introduce these things to begin with?
a lot of these devices have options on there already for you to set designated screen times. And because, especially if we're handing these devices to our kid and then walking off for a minute or walking next to them or doing something else, our mind is somewhere else. We also have a little bit of that time blindness and we'll forget how long they've been doing a thing. But the device can do it for you. So for example, on iOS devices, if you go into the settings in the screen time area, you can set specific time for each individual app that you have. So you can say, you know what, here, I want you to sit here and do this for half an hour. And then it'll turn off. And what I've found, especially with my kids, is really helpful is that the device turned off. That wasn't me. I'm not the bad person here. It turned off. And you can eliminate a little bit of that friction because, oh, the device is done for now. So I find that to be anytime we can take the pressure off us as parents a little bit, let's do it.
Sarah, that's genius. I didn't even know that was a thing. And thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. And like you said, now the mom, the parent is not the bad guy,
Yeah.
the devices, because it just turned off. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. We'll have to do something else now.
Yeah. And then you're teaching them so many different things with that one thing. You're teaching them how to self-regulate. You're teaching them that it's okay not to be on that device all the time, even though the device is designed to keep pulling you in and keep you there. Like, just little by little helping them make those decisions that they're going to need forever, because this isn't going away.
Exactly. Wow. That's a great way to get them out of it just came to me, the device vortex. I just coined that
Mm.
term.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
That's what yeah, it feels like it, they're just going down to this deep hole, and it's so
Mhm.
hard to get out of it. And parents don't often realize it's a problem until it becomes a problem, until it's too late, until they've been on it for a few years, and now they're, dare I say, addicted and can't get off.
Yeah, and it's so much harder to do once they get to a point that they expect that they're going to have the time on there, because you're right, our brains have, they've done a lot of studies on like the pleasure centers in your brain when you're using these devices, and they just light up crazy.
Mm.
And so when you're getting that all the time, you especially with a growing brain, you don't learn how to stimulate those with things like going outside and playing and reading a book that's not on a screen. Or even if you are reading on a screen, there are different levels of how our brain reacts and how screen time affects us. So that is something to also take into consideration, which is why I suggest doing each individual app and not overall screen time.
Gotcha. Oh, that no, honestly, that's amazing. Uh, Again, not something that I would have thought of because, we had a foster child who, before his mom was like, "Oh, he's got like 4 iPads at home." I was like, "I don't want them. I don't want any of them." Just we're just going cold turkey. It's just not happening because I don't want to have to deal with this. And it worked out fine because they weren't here.
Yeah.
But when they're here, that's a whole other situation when you're used to having them in the setting
Hmm.
and they're always there. They're like, right there, I can see it, mom. Why can't I have it?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And because it's so easy to pick up and just be like, oh, I mean, we do it as adults all the time. Oh, I'm just going to check this one thing. And then it's 45 minutes later and you're like, what was I on here for?
That happened to me yesterday.
Yep.
Honestly, I got stuck in the LinkedIn vortex. Don't ask me how or why.
Hmm.
I was on there and here I'm just scrolling through and I was like, wait, I had other plans. Now
Yeah.
I've been on here for 45 minutes and I can't believe like that's time I can't get back.
Right.
So I have to be really careful,
Hmm.
not to throw myself in that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yeah. It's hard for all of us. And I think, especially as our kids get older, and for the younger ones too, it is important for them to know that this is a hard thing we have to do, and we have to learn how to do it. And it's not something that you stop learning how to do. So that, I think, is a big piece that especially when I'm talking to parents of teens, that one's always well, I just can't get them off. Like, they're used to it. They've had it for their whole life, you
Mm.
know, but yes, and they're going to continue to have it for their whole life, but we want to make sure they're having a whole life, not just a life online. We want to make sure they have a life offline too.
I love that distinction. Seriously, because yeah, like, it's that is it has become their whole life, but it
Mhm.
should not be because it's not a holistic life.
Yes.
It's just this one track and it inhibits socialization, it inhibits a
Mhm.
whole lot of learning that children don't have access to because they're on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult sometimes, especially if they've had it and had access. When and I see a lot of problems when people have their kids have unlimited access and there's no boundaries. You wouldn't give your kid a car and say, "Here's a car, do whatever you want."
Right,
Right? Like, you're going to teach them how to use it. You wouldn't give them a pan and a stove and say, "Here you go, figure it out."
right,
Right?
yeah.
And so we have to start, and if you've done that, it's okay, because we weren't taught how to do it. We
Wait.
are None of our parents knew, because we didn't have to our parents didn't have to teach us that. We are the first generation of parents that have to deal with this, so we have to learn how to parent it too. And that can be so daunting, but the key is to start small and grow that over time, and you'll see improvements and changes in so many different ways.
Okay, so I want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing parents not to judge themselves, giving that permission for them not to
Mm.
judge themselves for allowing the devices. Because, come on, we don't know what we don't know.
Oh, right. Oh, and after the last 2 years, oh my goodness. please.
Yes.
No, there is no judgment here whatsoever. But if you're here and you're listening, then you want to change something and you're ready. So start small, because if you start big, you can. And I'm not going to say you can't. Go for it, but it will be real hard.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I
And
can only
I don't want people to give up, right? So if you're
Right.
starting with if you start in this big arena where you're like, that's it, we're all done, nobody's doing anything, that's it. But the problem is, so much of our kids' social life happens there, and so much of how they're learning to become themselves is integrated in that. So when you completely take it away, instead of slowly teaching how to use it in a way that's helpful and beneficial to them and that they're going to be able to use forever, it can feel like they're being punished and they're going to rebel hard.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's a whole other pitfall.
Yes.
So give us an example of how somebody would start small. Like what, just give us, a little
Mhm.
window into that.
Yeah, so I would start first with a conversation. Sit down, have a cup of whatever you like, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a milkshake, pick something. Anything is good. But you want something for them to have their hands on, because you want something that's not their phone or their device to have their hands on, right? So, and just sit down and say, you know what, I want to talk about why we're online in the first place. What do you like being about? Why do you like to be on there? What do you like to do? And let them share and tell you why they like it, and start that conversation, because that's going to be the first foundational step.
Mhm.
So that would be the first thing, is starting with that conversation of why you want to be there in the first place. And then ask them to pick one app that they use, and pick a time limit for it, and let them choose that. Now, you can give them a boundary, like it can't be like, you can't have this app for more than 2 hours a day. What would you like to set it at? And they very well may say, well, 2 hours.
Mhm.
But the point is that they're setting a time. And then you can say, okay, after a week, we're going to cut down half an hour. We're going to cut down 15 minutes. And as you're doing that, starting adding in different apps, and letting them choose that app first. So maybe it's not the one they use all the time that they're really attached to.
Right.
But by showing them that they can do it in those small ways, you'll start to see big changes over time.
Awesome. Now, Sarah, my child is 2, and I've had him on this device for the last, I don't know, 6 months at least. What can I do?
Woo, yeah, when they're little. Um, That's a great question. So when they're really small, I mean, that screen time thing is super helpful, because then the device is doing it for you.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, it's tired, it has to go to bed. Oh, that's so sad. It's nap time. I use that
Ah,
one a lot when
right.
my kids were small. Oh, and they get that, because they're like, oh yeah, I have nap time. Okay. Even if they're not like making it all click really, but
Mhm.
the language they understand. And so that's definitely the first thing that I would do. And then once that app shuts down, have something ready. Have a fidget quilt, have a felt board, have something that's already going to be engaging,
Mhm.
that you have ready to pull out. So I used to have like those bags of like, just I call them busy bags, and I had like 6 or 7 different things. I was in a mom's group where we all made one kind and then we swapped them. And that would be great for this. So you have like a collection. So it's not the same thing every time, because that's part of it with these devices, is it changes so fast and it keeps them stimulated all the time.
Yeah.
So if when the time is over on the device, you immediately have something else for them that's going to engage some other part of their brain and then help them move on to whatever the next activity is, that can be really helpful.
Wow, that's awesome. Because here I'm thinking I was gonna throw you a curveball, and you just gave us the answer, and
So
thank you. And I mean, I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I was just like, "Oh my gosh, what about those young children? What can we do?"
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm glad there's a solution. Just say it that way. I am so glad, because I was afraid maybe there wasn't something that we could do.
Oh, you definitely, yep. Yeah, I think and I think it's important to start, just because we see how attached they are, and anytime you take something from somebody that small, they're going to be mad about it.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter at all what it is, they're going to be mad about it. But having that something else, I remember my kids were really small. They're 8 to 14 now, but we would have like a rainy day bucket of toys that I would bring out. And that's something that I would definitely use for this situation too. When one day it's just like, okay, these little bags aren't cutting it. We need a full new set of stuff.
Nice.
Just like something that's visually stimulating and has a little bit of that audio stimulation too, even if it's stacking blocks or whatever it is that helps them engage in different ways.
Wonderful. And I like that you mentioned before working with different parents and they all have different bags and swapping them because then it takes that pressure off. Because first of all, you've got other people in your boat.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
not
Oh my
alone
gosh,
in
that's so
this.
important. So important.
Yeah. And then, if there's no pressure for you to come up with 5 different bags,
Mhm.
everybody has done one. And it's like, hey, let's swap. So you do it on a schedule, like you swap every.
Yeah, I think we did it like every 6 months. And we would, one of the things we would do is each of us would create like 6 of the same bag.
Mhm.
And then, so we would all have just kept growing our collection. We would get together and you'd get one of everybody's, kind of like a cookie swap, but it was for busy bags.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really fun. And it was fun to have that little bit of like, I only need to be a little bit creative and I had an end in mind. So it wasn't like I was trying to create like 50 of something. It was just a couple. And yeah, good for my brain too.
Yeah, yeah, it takes away the overwhelm, which is amazing
Yes.
because Lord knows parents have enough on their plate as
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh. Yes. Yep.
So, and parents, our goal here is just to make your life easier because we know you have the hardest job there is.
Exactly. Oh, I know. I'm with y'all.
Yes, yes. So you talk about a digital audit. What
Hmm.
exactly does that look like?
Yeah. So I recommend this for older kids who have a little autonomy on the internet, who may have some social media profiles, who maybe have a website depending on what they're doing. Um, and I also really encourage it for parents also, especially those of us that are posting a lot about our kids online.
Mhm.
Um, we want to make sure that we have one sheet. So a digital audit, all it really is pulling in all of the information you've put out on the internet in one place so you can see it. So it would be, just as I said, that websites, social media, um, if you're someone that has like a blog and sends out newsletters, things like that, any way that you're interacting with other people, online. Um, and all you do is kind of give yourself the time. So it does take a little bit of time, but you go through and check what it is that you actually have been putting out there. Because I don't know about you, but in about a week, I will forget what I posted to Instagram.
Yep.
So um, so one of the things is when I started my business, I wanted to make sure that any of the profiles that I had set to public, I wasn't sharing pictures of my kids from when they were smaller.
Mhm.
So I went back until it took me a very long time because I went back like 15 years through some Facebook stuff. But
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that anything that I had listed as public wasn't information or pictures of my kids. Um, so one thing for parents when you're doing this digital audit for yourself is to make sure you're checking those privacy settings. Make sure that for the pictures that you're putting out there, that you are putting ones out there that you either are um, just to your family and friends, but not, they don't need to be for the whole general public consumption. Like every picture you have of your kids doesn't need to be public consumption stuff. Um, and I think it can be really hard for us to remember because it's designed for you to interact with people who are close to you, but it can be really easy to forget that anyone who knows your name can, and even if they know just one thing about you, it can be really easy to find you on the internet. And so making sure we're setting those privacy settings for ourselves and for our kids if they have those social media profiles, and setting them to private as often as possible.
Gotcha. So you want to basically what I'm hearing is don't embarrass your children.
Also that, yes. Yeah, because it's going to be out there forever for them. And so if for example, you and your kid both have an Instagram account and you follow each other, even if theirs is set to private, someone could look at their name, look at their list of followers, realize that your names are similar, and go and click through your profile. And if your profile and feed is public and you've been posting things about where they go to school, sports games they've had, specific locations about things, that can get it's not only a privacy thing, it's also a safety thing, to make sure that we're keeping as much information as we can about our kids private on the internet, because it'll be there forever and people will be able to find it forever.
Wow. Yeah. And you don't realize the rabbit hole that you
Mm-hmm.
go down with this because it's only when you started talking about their sports and what they're doing and this and that I realized, oh gosh, safety. Because somebody
Mm-hmm.
could just pull up and say, hey, mom told me to pick you up. And yeah, that
Yeah.
could really cause a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of the things I recommend with the digital audit is to step back, look at the things you're posting, make sure you're posting them because you really want to be posting them. Um, if if you've gone back about 6 months thinking like, okay, well, do I really want, if someone looked at my feed today, is this still relevant?
mhm.
Like, and most of the time it is, and it's fine. You're just curating, your own space on the internet. But sometimes you'll look at it and say, you know what, actually, I don't want that out there anymore.
Right.
And you can delete it, make it a lot harder for someone to find.
Mhm.
But we do need to make sure when we're posting initially, like if you're posting, one of the rules that I have for myself is anything I post, whether it is on my public or my private profile, if I would not be comfortable seeing that on the daily news or some front page of a newspaper, I'm not going to post it, because once you post it, you don't have control over it anymore. Any one of your friends or acquaintances, or if you have a private Instagram profile, any of the people that you've accepted as followers can screenshot it and share it however they want.
Wow.
So we just have to be really mindful and conscious when we're posting, which we didn't think about that as the internet has been growing. Like, we didn't know this is what is going to happen, and so now we're just kind of backpedaling a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad, but it's essential backpedaling,
Mm.
because what I'm hearing again you say is, don't post when you're angry, don't post
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
not, like make sure you are being mindful, make sure you are calm so that you can make an informed decision about putting all of your business out
Yeah.
into the world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I tell people a lot, like, no argument has ever been won on Facebook.
No, so
Never happened.
true.
And it's not going to, because when you have that posting back and forth, you're not thinking through things. So even if you take yourself off that app and compose something in like your notes app,
Mhm.
like, give yourself some time to look at it and say, actually, is that representing me well? Am I representing myself well? I've gotten into discussions, we'll say, with people, and I've used that, and I've had pages, it looks like pages of information that I wanted to tell them. I was telling them how wrong they were and how,
Right.
you know, and then in the end, I just said, you know what, if you want to continue this conversation, send me a DM. It's the only thing I posted. Not once have I had someone be like, okay, I'll continue that conversation with you.
Right. Yeah. No, I honestly, that is such great advice. It really is because we're so often just so ready to just respond. And
Mm-hmm.
something that I've started doing when I get a message, that's loaded,
Mm,
I give myself a couple of days. I don't respond right away.
yes,
I give
that's
myself a
great.
couple of days to say, okay, how do I want to respond? Because first of all, I want to honor myself in that response. And secondly, it doesn't matter who you are. I want to honor you as well
Hmm.
because I don't want to ever say something that I'm going to regret and that's going to make anybody, no matter how you've come at me, I don't want to belittle anybody and I don't want to, I just want to keep it respectful. So
Hmm.
I've learned, just wait. And sometimes I may never respond,
Yep,
which is okay too, I feel.
exactly.
But I
Yes.
just like to give myself some time. So some people, people are like, why isn't she responding? Or if they ask, well, you haven't responded. It's like, I'm still, now, honestly, I've responded. I honestly don't know what to say to this. you know?
Mhm. I just yeah, and I think that those it's really important to say that, and not just to ourselves, but also to our kids who are having conversations with people online, that you know what? No is always an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Always, full stop. You can end it there. You can not respond. Totally allowed. And I think it's helpful to have that permission sometimes, um, for to just say, you know what, you don't have to respond to everything everybody says.
Right.
Like there's no rule somewhere that says you have to sign up, and when you sign up that means you will respond to every single thing. Nope.
Exactly. Yes. And that's so, I want teenagers to get this, or parents share this with your teenagers, because teenagers feel the pressure of having to respond, because if I don't, they're going to think I'm this, that, and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes two to argue, sweetheart. And if you don't, then they let it go. Let them talk to themselves and do whatever.
Right.
But you're honoring yourself and actually also that person by not responding in a way that maybe 2, 3 months down the road you might regret.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I mean, in the way the internet moves, it's so fast,
mhm,
right? Like it, and I think that's really hard, especially for teens, because everything is so immediate. And
mhm.
you feel things so much when you're a teenager that when it's moving fast and you didn't get in on that conversation when you wanted to, you can feel like you completely missed out on everything and your friends have left you and that's it.
Yeah.
But the next day you start over and no one's gonna, like, it moves so quickly that you're not going to remember, they're not going to remember, and just move on and it's going to be okay.
Exactly, exactly. And I was watching a show the other day, and this woman mentioned, she was vacationing with her friends, and two of them, there were three of them, and two of them went one way, and she went the other way. And people were like, "Oh, aren't you afraid?" No, she said, "No, I'm experiencing the joy of missing out instead of
Yes.
the fear." So she experienced the joy, and she was by herself out in nature, just enjoying the scenes and the sights and the sounds, instead of worrying about, being in the action, because we need
Mm-hmm.
that time. We need that time to unplug, not just from those
Definitely.
devices, but from other people as
Yes.
well.
100%. That's exactly true. I think that's really hard for all of us to remember, that though that fear of missing out, that FOMO is huge. I love that you brought up joy of missing out. That's a friend of mine taught me to that at a retreat earlier this year, and I was just like, that's it. I want to put that everywhere. Just tell everyone, because the internet itself is so fragmented. You can't see everything anyway. If you wanted to try and watch everything on YouTube, it would take it's a longer than a lifetime to watch everything. So you're gonna miss
Exactly.
out on stuff.
That's
So might
right.
as well be joyful about it.
That's right. And find things that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
I had Molly DeFrank on, and she also talks about detoxing. And what she talks about, when her children detox from digital devices, they were so happy afterward. Their brains weren't hijacked, and they found so many other things that they were
Mm-hmm.
interested in doing, instead of just being glued to
Yep.
these devices.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. 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 Finding that balance is really hard, because so much of life is happening online. I mean, we're online right now, right? So much
right,
in
yes.
in our connections and but it's how do we teach them how to have connections like we're having right now, instead of those mindless scrolling, angry posting connections that we don't want.
Exactly, and which have negative effects on your brain. So who
Mm-hmm.
wants that?
No one wants that.
Alright, so Sarah, I wanna be mindful of your time, and if there's one thing you want parents to leave this moment with, what would that be?
You are not alone in this. Every other parent is dealing with trying to figure out how to have their kids balance online and offline life. And there are resources available, and there are, talk to someone, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and there is support for us on this side.
Wonderful, thank you, and how can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on my website at www.thestarteffect.com, or I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Start Effect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. And parents, if this has been helpful to you in any way, please share it with others because this is such valuable information and it needs to be out there. Your children deserve to get the benefits of what you have learned here today. So download, like, share, do whatever you have to, but just spread it all around and
Definitely.
check out Miss Sarah at thestarteffect.com.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sarah. It's been wonderful.
Yes, I love this. Thanks so much.
All righty. See you soon.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.